Hi, my name's Amy Pavlina, and this is the first video in a series of 2 videos to help unpack the lesson for Unit 4, Day 1, Unit Launch, Articles of Confederation for Grade 4. In this first video, I'm going to unpack the lesson with you to go over some ideas for synchronous and asynchronous instruction that are provided for you. In the next video, I'm going to show you a way to scaffold vocabulary, as well as the Articles of Confederation for students who need better access to the curriculum. So let's go over this lesson together and let's see what we have here. So the first thing I'm going to notice is my overview page. This page is something that I would be deleting once I'm presenting to students, but I am going to read it over and it gives me some key information. There's a video song from Hamilton. It's going to be in the materials within the lesson. I have a student-friendly version of the Articles of Confederation. This is big because the Articles of Confederation, if you've seen it before or you've already distributed it to students in previous years, it's a lot of heavy lifting for students. And for 4th graders, most of them aren't quite there yet. They need something with rigor that's going to be just right for them. So let's go into any other notes. There's 2 words that you're going to have to be focusing in this lesson: query and estrangement. In my next video, I'm going to show you how to model that for students who need better access to the curriculum. You also have the student-friendly version of the Articles of Confederation, but if you click on these links, they're hyperlinked to the original article. Next, I'm going to be going through the other notes. You should be reading this as well, and it's just explaining some of the ideas that you can use throughout this lesson, such as having students choose 3 articles to write about only. Maybe you're assigning this in your instructions on Google Classroom or within your own classroom, and students are jigsawing the articles at the end of your lesson or in another lesson, a follow-up lesson, or you can assign them 1 slide to do and fill out the graphic organizer. You have the autonomy to do so. So it's just an idea to use, but it's not definite. You have to see what best fits for your classroom. Here's some suggested synchronous activities. And on these synchronous activities, one of them is actually going to be used within the lesson. You have the timeline of the Articles of Confederation in the introduction, and you also have introduction questions for students. The next slide is going to be some suggested asynchronous activities. This lesson already has 1 asynchronous activity, but again, meeting the needs of your students, you know your students best. You're going to get some ideas of what to leave your students with to get those genuine artifacts of their knowledge from this lesson. So, reading or listening to student-friendly Articles of Confederation during independent work, that's included in this lesson, but there's other options as well. You could read through them. And again, you're going to delete this slide once you've chosen what you're going to do, just to kind of orientate yourself to this lesson. Here's some supports also that are embedded in this lesson for students with disabilities. So if you have students that really need help and assistance with reading comprehension, or maybe you have students who English is not their first language, their native language, and you need extra support as the classroom teacher to help really create that access point. And here are some great options that you have within the lesson, and they're hyperlinked for you. So if you click on it, you can click onto different things. So here's something from Reading Rockets. You have comprehension strategies from the Museum of Natural History. Here's some ideas for formative assessment. And now we're ready to look at the actual lesson. The lesson is color-coded. Yellow for teachers, green for students. The first thing that I'm seeing right here is that I have 2 bold-faced words that I'm going to have to really go over with my students. I have query and estrangement. In the next video, I'll show you a model for that, but you should really be going over this before playing the video. Once you play the video, they're going to come across those 2 words. Maybe you're stopping at those points to kind of guide their understanding and saying, okay, what do you notice here? What do you think this word might mean? Do you remember what we said at the beginning of this lesson 3 times? Another great feature on YouTube is if you press play I'm going to press play here, but I'm going to mute it so you don't hear it over me. If you go to the actual YouTube site and I go to settings, I can go to playback speed and I can make this video slower for students who need extra support, or maybe it's going too fast for them to really understand. You want to slow it down so to meet the best needs of your students. Maybe if you have students who need some extra processing time, you're putting this a lot slower and you're discussing it line by line or slide by slide as it goes through. So just looking at it, if I put it, this is normal. If I go to 0.5, it's going to sound a lot different. And again, I have it muted. So if it wasn't muted, notice the difference of how the words are staying on the slide longer. This is going to help for your students who need extra support with processing. So that's just an option that you could do for this part of the lesson. After watching the Hamilton lyrics once, twice, maybe 3 times if your students need it, you're going to go to the questions and you're going to have your students answer the questions with you. It's going to be a class discussion. Maybe you're doing this through Jamboard. Maybe you're putting these slides on Nearpod and you're having students type their own responses. Maybe your students are verbally telling you and you're typing a class response together. It's up to you as the teacher to decide how you're going to use this. The last thing you're going to do in this lesson before sending students off for independent work is you're going to go over the timeline and you're going to really stress when the Articles of Confederation were approved and when the Revolutionary War was actually won. That's making a big difference in some of the ideas of what students might be thinking. A lot of students are getting the Articles of Confederation confused with the Constitution, which will come a little bit later. Next, here's the independent work. It's in green. You could take these slides and if you highlight them, and I do this by holding my control button and just clicking on the slides, you can make a copy for students. So I have them all highlighted, all the slides I want. I go up to File, make a copy, and I do selected slides. And I'm going to put student work, Unit 4, Day 1, Unit Launch. And it creates a copy of just the slides I could put on a Google Classroom assignment. Last but not least, every lesson has a wrap-up. You can have students jigsawing their articles out with peers or with the whole class, and you can create a class discussion about why do you think the leaders of the 13 colonies created these articles as rules and laws to live by in 1777? Really stress the timeline that this was done in 1777. Next, you're going to really reiterate why when the United States becomes one country, these articles are kind of obsolete. They're ineffective. And then the check for understanding could be an exit ticket that you're using, or you can choose to omit it. It's up to you and the best needs of your students. I hope this has been helpful. In our next video, we're going to go over some comprehension strategies for students who are needing better access to the curriculum.